Okay, this is exercise 7.2 of Murach's Visual Basic 2015. When you open the start files, if you have a file open, automatically close that. I just had a problem where I couldn't get the project to build. So close that and then make sure you're opening this frm invoice total.vb. We're going to the code view. Steps 1 and 2 of this exercise tell you to use your solution from 6.1. If you're in my class, I'd like you to use the start files that I gave you for 7.2. If you're not in my class, you can get those start files from the Murach website, or you can use your solution from 6.1. Alright, so that was steps 1 and 2. And go to the sub-procedure for getting the discount percent. We're going to take the else, we're going to comment it out. We're going to comment it out. There we go. Control K, Control C will comment that out. And that means that only R and C are valid customer types. And then we need to do some data validation. So we are going to, over here, just get that out of the way. I'm going to create a function called isValidCustomerType. And isValidCustomerType takes in a customer type as a string and returns a Boolean. And I'm going to make just a pretty basic if statement here saying if customer type is equal to R or else customer type is equal to C, then return true. Otherwise, message box.show, please enter R or C as the customer type. So pretty straightforward. If the customer type is an R or else, it's a C, and we're using or else here. This short circuits our logic. So if customer type is R, then this doesn't even run. But if customer type is not R, then we check to see if customer type is C. If customer type is R or C, we return true. Otherwise, we show this error message and then we return false. That was step 4. Step 5 is we're going to actually use this. So I'm going to use it right here. And what I want to do is, if the customer type, if it's not a valid customer type, we're going to exit the sub-procedure. IsValidCustomerType handles the messagebox.show for us. So I don't need to show another error message here. Just if this fails, we're going to exit the sub-procedure. Now, if I run this, and I give it R with 650, everything's great. If I make it F, it says please enter R or C as the customer type. And that's it. This sub-procedure ended. Alright. Before I go too far, I'm going to change something down here in isValidCustomerType, because there's a theory that some people subscribe to, and I try to play with it, is that you don't use else statements. And so if customer type is R or C, then we return true. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to take out my else statement. And I'm just going to put this right here. Because this didn't really change the functionality. If customer type is R or C, then this returns true. If it's not R or C, then this did not return true. Therefore, the function keeps running, and it shows the error message and then returns false. So here I was able to get rid of my else. You know, it's a minor thing in this application, but when you start building bigger applications, to be able to get rid of your else statements really helps. You know, you could do the same thing here. I could put an else in here, and I can put all of my code in here. right? It does the same thing, but this is kind of ugly. Now we have all of this code that's indented 1, 2, 3 times, versus before, all of this code is only indented twice. And once, if we had a loop in here, then it's indented 4 times, and if we had an if inside the loop, then it's indented 5 times, and eventually we're coding way out here. So this just helps keep the code a little bit cleaner. All right, that was step 5. Step 6, we need to add some data validation to the subtotal entry. So we're looking at this subtotal here. Actually, we're looking at this subtotal. It has to be a positive numeric value that's greater than 0 and not greater than 1,000. To do that, we're going to write another private function called isValidSubtotal. And I think we're going to assume isValidSubtotal already has this converted in. So I'm looking at this subtotal right here. Let me read through this one more time. Validates the entry. Nope. So actually we're going to be looking at the text subtotal. I'm going to pass the whole input box. Is it an input box? I don't remember how we did this last time. I'm going to cheat. I'm looking back at 7.1. I want to see how they did this as text box. All right. So isValidSubtotal takes in the text box. And in this case, the text box is going to be subtotal. I'm going to just call this text box. No, that's a terrible name. We'll call it txt subtotal. All right. The first thing we need to do we have any helper functions in here? We don't. We're going to have to write this ourselves. Okay. I'm going to start with if txt subtotal dot text. That's all right. We're going to call it my text box. If my text box dot text is equal to nothing, so they didn't input anything, then we need to message box dot show so if they didn't enter anything, then we need to ask the user to enter a value for the subtotal. We'll call this box missing input. And then what I want to do is I want it to move the cursor to my text box. And I'm going to use this right here. I'm going to just copy this, paste. I'm using isValidSubtotal, and I'm passing to it txt subtotal. All right, so I have a private function isValidSubtotal. It takes in a text box. I'm calling it within my function. I'm going to call it my text box. If my text box.text, so what the user input into the text box, is empty, then display this message and then select the text box, return false. If that gets returned false here, then we exit the sub procedure. We do not continue. So if I hit run, I hit calculate, The first thing is the invalid customer type. So I'm going to put R in there. I'm going to leave subtotal empty, hit calculate. Please enter a value for the subtotal, and my cursor is now blinking in the subtotal box. Alright, so we check to make sure that the value is, a valid, that it's not empty. Next thing we want to do is we want to see if we can convert this to a decimal. And again, I'm going to look back at 7.1. Here we have this is decimal. I'm going to select this code, copy it. This is the code from, oops, hang on, copy, paste, there we go. Okay, so here we have, make sure the box has something in it. Can we convert the input to a decimal? So this comes directly from 7.1. We're just declaring this number. It's kind of a throwaway variable. Try parse returns true if it's successful, false otherwise. If we were able to convert it, I don't want to return true yet because I think I'm going to do something else here. Validates. I guess that's all we need to do for the number. Well, I still don't want this. I'm going to say if not decimal, try parse. I want to show all this stuff. And then I'm going to say if we made it here, the subtotal is valid. So I took their if decimal.try parse, I just flipped it around, if not decimal try parse. So if it fails, then we're going to say that, well, this name doesn't even exist. So we know this is all for subtotal. Subtotal must be a decimal value. And then we select that box again. I'm going to run this. I'm going to put in R and ASDF. I hit calculate. Subtotal must be a decimal value. It then selects what's in that text box automatically. So I can hit delete and put in 650 and it works fine. So, you can add some more here. You can put something in here to say that, well, let's see. Oh, it has to be a positive numeric value that's greater than 0 and not greater than 1,000. So we do have to add some more here. So I'm going to say so we can work with number now, because number is this decimal that was able to be, we took the input and converted it to this number. So if number is less than 0, then we have another problem. I'm going to copy all this because that's pretty much the same stuff. We're just going to change the error message. Subtotal must be greater than 0. And I'm going to take all this, copy, paste. If number is greater than 1,000, then subtotal must be less than 1,000. All right. Positive numeric value that's greater than 0 and not greater than 1,000. So here we just make sure there's something in it. It's a numeric value, has to be positive, can't be greater than 1,000. And if any of these things happen, if the value in the text box is empty, then return false. And if we can't convert it, then return false. And if it's less than 0, return false. And if it's greater than 1,000, return false. But if we made it through all those tests and we're here now in our code, then the subtotal is valid and we return true. And I already have in here that we're calling this is valid subtotal. So I'm going to run my application now. R, and I can put in negative 3250. Must be greater than 0. Okay, well 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's greater than 0. Must be less than 1,000. 999.99. It works just fine. So that was step 7, testing your work. And step 8, modify. So T is a customer type that gets 40%. Gee, didn't we just comment that out? Where is that? That's... Oh, we kind of commented that out. Alright, I don't like typing, so I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste there. I'm going to change the C here to a T. And I'm going to, I think it's Control D duplicates a line. Yep. And I'm going to take that and put it here. I'm going to get rid of the comment. Alright, otherwise customer type T gets a 40% discount. So my code is technically valid now. If I run this and I put T 1,000, but my data validation is not right. So I need to find where we validate for R's and T's. Again, copy, paste, add T as a valid option. Change my error message. There you go, T gets 40% now. So again, here I just took this or else customer type equals C. I copied that, I pasted it at the end. So this if statement in is valid customer type now says if customer type is R or else customer type is C or else customer type is T, then return true. This is getting a little long. If we had maybe 1 or 2 more customer types, I would change the way this is coded. Probably use a nice switch in here. And then my message box.show, please enter R, C, or T as the customer type. And that's that. So customer type, I'm just looking at the instructions here. Customer type 40%, we did that. And we're done experimenting. So go ahead, save this, zip it up, submit it. And that is 7.2.